I saw her with 3 copies, laughing like nothing was wrong.
The fluorescent lights at LAX baggage claim buzzed like angry wasps, casting that special shade of institutional yellow that makes everyone look either dead or dying. I had been standing there for 47 minutes, watching the same black suitcase circle past me for the 10th time, when I saw something that made my stomach twist with dread. My wife Julia was walking toward gate 47, holding hands with 3 teenage girls who looked exactly like her. Not similar, not family resemblance. Exactly. Like her. Same auburn hair cascading in waves past their shoulders. Same green eyes that had made me fall in love 15 years ago. Same delicate nose. Same full lips. Same way of tilting their heads when they laughed. The oldest one, maybe 16, called her Mom as they passed the Starbucks. I'm Rob Carter, 40 years old, IT security engineer for a mid-sized company in Burbank. I fix firewalls and catch hackers for a living. I deal in facts, logic, and cold hard data. What I was seeing defied every fact I knew about my life. Julia and I had been trying to have kids for years after Emily. We'd done the fertility tests, the procedures, the heartbreak of failed attempts. She'd never been pregnant again, never carried another child to term. So how the heck was she walking through LAX with 3 daughters who looked like carbon copies of her teenage self? My phone buzzed. A text from Julia. Flight delayed again. Won't be home until late tomorrow. Love you, honey. I stared at the screen, then looked up. There she was, 50 yards away, laughing with the 3 girls as they approached the boarding gate for Emirates Flight 215 to Dubai. She looked happier than I'd seen her in years. Free. Radiant. The oldest girl hugged her tight. Thanks for everything, Mom. This has been the best month ever. I'm going to miss you so much, Julia replied, her voice carrying that maternal warmth I'd only heard her use with our daughter Emily. My hands started shaking. I ducked behind a pillar, heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of mistake, some cosmic joke, some final boarding call for Emirates Flight 215 to Dubai. I watched my wife of 15 years kiss 3 daughters I'd never known existed goodbye. Watched her hand them boarding passes and what looked like thick envelopes. Watched her wipe tears from her eyes as they disappeared down the jet bridge. Then she turned and walked away, pulling out her phone. 30 seconds later, mine buzzed again. Miss you already. Can't wait to get home to my 2 favorite people. P.S. Picked up something special for Emily in the hotel gift shop. I stood there in the fluorescent wasteland of LAX, surrounded by the chaos of travelers and crying babies and overhead announcements, staring at a text from a woman I apparently didn't know at all. The black suitcase circled past me again. This time, I didn't even see it. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I sat in the airport bar until 2 a.m., nursing whiskey and trying to process what I'd seen. The bartender, a guy named Pete, with arms covered in military tattoos, kept giving me concerned looks. You okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that, I muttered, staring at my phone. Julia had sent 3 more texts, a photo of her delayed plane on the tarmac, a complaint about airport food, and a goodnight message with heart emojis. All lies, all carefully constructed fiction. I'd watched her board that flight to Dubai. I'd seen her with those girls. So where were these texts really coming from? How long had she been living this double life? By morning, I'd made a decision that would change everything. I called in sick to work and drove to a strip mall in Van Nuys to the office of Eddie Park, private investigator. I'd found him online at 3 a.m. Former LAPD, specializes in infidelity cases, 5-star reviews from people whose lives had been turned upside down by cheating spouses. His office smelled like stale coffee and disappointment. Eddie himself was 60-something, Korean-American, with the kind of weathered face that had seen every variety of human betrayal. Let me guess, he said before I'd even sat down. Your wife's cheating and you want proof for the divorce. I wish it were that simple. I told him everything, the airport, the girls, the lies. He listened without interruption, occasionally making notes in a battered notebook. 3 daughters who look exactly like her, he repeated when I finished. And she's been lying about her whereabouts. I know how it sounds. Actually, it sounds like the weirdest case I've had in 20 years, which is saying something. He leaned back in his chair. You want me to investigate your wife's secret family? I want to know what the heck is going on. I want to know who those girls are, why she's lying to me, and how long this has been happening. Eddie quoted me his rates. They weren't cheap, but I didn't care. I would have paid anything to understand what my life had become. I'll need access to her computer, her phone records if possible, credit card statements, anything that might show a pattern of deception. She works from home 2 days a week, runs some kind of family services nonprofit. What kind of family services? Adoption counseling, I think, helping people navigate the system. The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Had that been a lie too? Eddie started earning his fee immediately. Within 2 hours, he'd found irregularities in Julia's travel patterns going back 3 years. Flights to Dubai, London, Singapore, all during times when she'd told me she was at local conferences or visiting her sister in Phoenix. Your wife's been very busy, he said, showing me a printout. Looks like she travels internationally about once every 2 months. Always alone on the outbound flights, but what? Immigration records are tricky, but I have a contact at customs. If those girls you saw are traveling with her regularly, there'll be a paper trail. My phone rang, Julia. Hey, honey, her voice was bright, cheerful. Just wanted to let you know I'm finally boarding. Should be home by dinner. Great, I managed. Can't wait to see you. Love you. Love you too. I hung up and looked at Eddie. She's coming home. What do I do? You act normal. You don't let on that anything's changed, and you let me do my job. But acting normal felt impossible when your entire reality had been shattered in an airport baggage claim. Julia came home that evening with gifts and stories, just like always. She'd bought Emily a t-shirt from the hotel gift shop. Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, it read, complete with a cactus logo. She hugged me tight and told me about the boring conference, the terrible hotel food, the delayed flights. I held her and smelled her shampoo and felt like I was embracing a stranger. Over dinner, she asked about my week, listened to Emily complain about her chemistry teacher, shared gossip about her coworkers at the nonprofit. She was the same Julia I'd married, warm, funny, attentive, the perfect wife and mother, except for the 3 daughters I'd seen her with at LAX. Eddie called the next morning while Julia was in the shower. Your wife's been busy, he said without preamble. That nonprofit she works for? Sunshine Family Services? It's real, but it's not what you think. What do you mean? They specialize in international adoption and surrogacy arrangements, big money stuff. Wealthy couples who want children, women willing to carry them. Your wife isn't just a counselor. She's a coordinator. My stomach dropped. Coordinator of what? That's what we need to find out. I'm sending you an address. Can you meet me there in an hour? The address was in Manhattan Beach, an upscale neighborhood I'd never known Julia to visit. Eddie was waiting in his car outside a Spanish-style duplex with a perfectly manicured lawn. According to county records, your wife has been renting this place for 2 years, he said. Paid for through her nonprofit. Want to take a look? The spare key was exactly where Eddie said it would be, under a fake rock by the front door. We let ourselves in, and I felt like Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole. The apartment was set up for teenagers, 3 bedrooms, each decorated for a different girl. Pop star posters on the walls, makeup scattered across dressing tables, clothes in the closets that would fit the girls I'd seen at the airport. But it was the living room that made my knees weak. An entire wall was covered with photographs. Julia with the 3 girls at Disneyland, Julia with them at the beach, Julia with them in what looked like Dubai, London, Singapore. Years of photos showing a family I'd never known existed. Rob, Eddie called from the kitchen, you need to see this. The kitchen table was covered with documents, contracts, financial records, correspondence. I picked up a letter dated 6 months ago. Dear Ms. Carter, it read, we are pleased to confirm the placement arrangements for Sarah, Michelle, and Amanda. The clients in Dubai are extremely satisfied with their progress and development. Payment of $500,000 has been transferred to your account as agreed. $500,000. For what? Eddie was reading another document. This one's from a law firm in London. They're thanking her for facilitating the successful placement of 3 exceptional candidates with our clients. Another $400,000. I sank into a chair, trying to process what I was seeing. She's selling children. Looks like it, but not just any children. Eddie held up a medical file. These girls aren't random kids, Rob. Look at this. The file contained genetic profiles, medical histories, psychological evaluations, and at the top of each page, a name I recognized: Dr. Adrian Hale, reproductive specialist. I know that name, I said. He's Julia's friend. They went to college together. He's been to our house for dinner parties. Well, your wife's college friend has been very busy. According to these files, he's been working with Julia for years, creating what they call optimal genetic matches for wealthy international clients. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to stay upright. Are you telling me those girls are... I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. We spent another hour going through the documents. What emerged was a picture of an operation that had been running for at least 5 years. Julia and Dr. Hale had been providing children somehow to wealthy clients around the world. The money involved was staggering. Millions of dollars had flowed through accounts I'd never known existed. My wife wasn't just living a double life. She was running a business that treated children like luxury commodities. As we prepared to leave, Eddie's phone buzzed. He answered, listened for a moment, then hung up with a grim expression. That was my contact at customs. Those 3 girls you saw? They've been traveling with your wife regularly for 2 years. Always the same pattern. They fly out together, she comes back alone a few days later. Where do they go? Different places. But they always end up in the same destination eventually, which is wherever the highest bidder is waiting. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Julia's face at the airport, radiant, maternal, loving toward 3 girls I'd never met. How long had she been living this other life? How had I missed the signs? The next morning, Julia announced she had lunch plans with her best friend, Lana. You remember Lana Cheng, she said, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. She used to work with me at the nonprofit before she went freelance. I remembered Lana, 35, sharp-dressed, always perfectly put together. She'd been to our house dozens of times over the years. Julia called her their secret tool, someone who could handle any crisis, solve any problem. What's she doing freelance? I asked, trying to sound casual. Childcare consulting, helping families with placement issues, transition problems, that sort of thing. She's amazing with kids. After Julia left, I called Eddie. I need you to follow my wife today. She's having lunch with someone who might be involved in all this. Already on it, I'm parked outside your house right now. 3 hours later, he called back. You're not going to like this, he said. Your wife and her friend just spent 2 hours at a spa in Beverly Hills. I managed to get close enough to record some of their conversation. And? Let me play you something. The audio was scratchy, but I could make out Julia's voice clearly. The Dubai clients are asking for 2 more next month. Same specifications as the last batch. Lana's response made my stomach drop. That's going to be expensive. Adrian's getting nervous about the frequency. Maybe we should space them out more. We can't. The waiting list is too long and the money's too good. Besides, Rob doesn't suspect anything. He's so wrapped up in his little computer world, he barely notices when I'm gone. They laughed, actually laughed about how oblivious I was. What about Emily? Lana asked. She's getting older, more observant. Emily adores me. She'd never question anything I do. And even if she did, what's she going to find? I'm very careful about keeping the 2 lives separate. Still, maybe it's time to think about an exit strategy. We've made enough money to disappear if we need to. Not yet. Adrian thinks he's perfected the process. The next batch is going to be even better than the last one. The recording ended. I sat in my car in the parking lot of my office building, staring at my phone. My wife wasn't just selling children. She was manufacturing them. That evening, Julia came home glowing with happiness. She'd had a wonderful day with Lana, she said. They'd talked about old times, made plans for a weekend trip to Napa Valley. You should come with us, she said, curling up next to me on the couch. It would be fun, just the 3 of us. I looked at her, really looked at her, the woman I'd fallen in love with in college, the woman who'd stood beside me at our wedding, promising to love and honor me for the rest of our lives, the woman who'd held my hand in fertility clinics, crying over our inability to have more children. Had any of it been real? That sounds great, I lied. Let me check my schedule. She kissed my cheek and went upstairs to check on Emily. I heard them talking and laughing together, the sound of a normal mother and daughter having a normal evening. But nothing about our life was normal anymore. Eddie called after Julia had gone to bed. I've got more information about Dr. Hale, he said. Want the good news or the bad news first? Just tell me everything. He runs a fertility clinic in Century City, very exclusive, very expensive. Caters to wealthy clients who want designer babies. The technology exists now to select for specific traits: intelligence, appearance, athletic ability. That's legal? In a gray area. But what he and your wife are doing goes way beyond legal fertility treatment. Based on what I've found, they're creating children specifically for sale to international clients. And those three girls you saw, I think they might be. Oh, he paused, and I knew what he was going to say before he said it. They might be clones, Rob. Genetic copies of your wife, created in a lab and raised specifically to be sold. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. I spent the next week living in a nightmare. Every morning, Julia kissed me goodbye and went to work at her nonprofit. Every evening, she came home with stories about helping families, about the rewarding nature of her work. She was loving, attentive, the perfect wife. And every day, Eddie uncovered more evidence of her secret life. The breakthrough came on a Thursday. Eddie had been monitoring Dr. Hale's clinic, and he called me at work with barely contained excitement. "I've got him," he said. "Hale just left his clinic with a briefcase. He's heading to LAX. Following him? Already in my car. But Rob, there's something else. I hacked into the clinic's appointment system. Your wife has an appointment there tomorrow at 2 p.m. My hands started shaking. What kind of appointment? It's coded, but based on the pattern of her previous visits, I think she's picking up another batch. Another batch. Like the girls were products on an assembly line. "I'm going to be there," I said. "Rob, that's not a good idea." "I'm going to be there," I repeated. "I need to see this for myself." The next afternoon, I sat in my car across from Dr. Hale's clinic, watching the entrance through binoculars. The building was sleek, modern, the kind of place where wealthy couples went to buy the children they couldn't conceive naturally. At exactly 2 p.m., Julia's car pulled into the parking lot. She walked into the clinic like she owned the place, confident and purposeful. 20 minutes later, she emerged with Dr. Hale and three young girls who looked about 12 years old. They all looked like Emily, not similar, not family resemblance. They looked exactly like our daughter had looked 3 years ago. Same dark hair, same brown eyes, same delicate features. If I hadn't known better, I would have sworn they were Emily's triplet sisters. My phone rang. "Julia." "Hi, honey," she said, and I could see her through the binoculars, standing next to Hale's Mercedes. "I'm running late today. There's a crisis at work, a family emergency with one of our clients. I might not be home until late." "Everything okay?" I managed. "Oh, you know how it is. Sometimes these placement situations get complicated. But don't worry, I'll handle it. I always do." She hung up and helped the three girls into Hale's car. They drove away, heading toward the airport. I followed them. This time, I wasn't going to hide behind a pillar. This time, I was going to confront the woman who'd been lying to me for years about who she really was. The scene at LAX was almost identical to what I'd witnessed 2 weeks earlier. Julia walked with the three girls toward the international terminal, holding hands, laughing, and playing the role of the loving mother. But this time, I was ready. I'd spent the morning preparing. I'd withdrawn cash from our joint account, money that belonged to me as much as her. I'd printed out copies of every document Eddie had found. And I'd called the FBI tip line to report suspected human trafficking. As Julia approached the gate for a flight to London, I stepped out from behind a support column. "Hello, honey," I said. She froze. The color drained from her face, and for a moment, she looked like she might faint. "Rob," she whispered, "what are you doing here?" I could ask you the same question, but I already know the answer. The three girls looked confused, frightened. They clustered around Julia like baby birds seeking protection. "Mom," the oldest one said. "Who is this man?" "Mom," I repeated, loud enough for other passengers to hear. That's interesting. Because, as far as I know, Julia only has one daughter. Her name is Emily, and she's at home doing her homework right now. Julia's eyes darted around, looking for an escape route, but I'd positioned myself carefully. The only way out was through me. "Rob, please," she said quietly, "but not here, not like this." "Where then? At your secret apartment in Manhattan Beach? At Dr. Hale's clinic? Or maybe in Dubai with all your satisfied customers?" Her face went white. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Pulled out the documents Eddie had found. "I understand that you've been selling children to the highest bidder. I understand that you've been lying to me for years. And I understand that these girls are products of some sick experiment you and your college boyfriend have been running. Final boarding call for British Airways Flight 284 to London." Julia looked at the gate, then back at me. Rob, I can explain everything, just not here. Actually, here's perfect. I raised my voice, making sure everyone in the gate area could hear. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet my wife, Julia Carter. She runs a human trafficking operation that creates children in laboratories and sells them to wealthy clients around the world. Chaos erupted. Passengers started pulling out phones, recording everything. Airport security appeared from nowhere. The three girls began crying, and Julia lunged at me. Julia hit me like a wildcat, all fury and desperation. We crashed into a row of chairs, sending travelers scattering. She was screaming. Incoherent words about ruining everything, about destroying her life's work. You stupid, blind fool, she shrieked, clawing at my face. You have no idea what you've done. Airport security pulled us apart, but the damage was done. The scene was being recorded by dozens of phones, uploaded to social media in real time. The three girls were sobbing, confused, and terrified. Ma'am, you need to calm down, one of the security officers said to Julia. You don't understand, she panted, her perfect hair disheveled, her makeup smeared. Those are my daughters. He's trying to keep me from my daughters. Funny thing about that, I said, pulling out the documents. According to these medical records from Dr. Adrian Hale's clinic, those girls were created in a laboratory 2 years ago using genetic material harvested from my wife. They're not her daughters. They're her clones. The security officer looked skeptical. Sir, that's a pretty serious accusation. It's all here, I interrupted, handing him the papers. Contracts, financial records, correspondence with buyers in Dubai, London, Singapore. My wife has been manufacturing and selling children for years. Julia's composure cracked completely. They're not products, she screamed. They're perfect, beautiful. I gave them life. You gave them life so you could sell them. I shot back. How much did those three cost? $500,000? $1 million? You wouldn't understand, she snarled. You with your little computer job, your pathetic salary. Do you know how much money we've made? Do you know what kind of life I could have given us? By selling children? By providing families with exactly what they wanted. Perfect children. Healthy, intelligent, beautiful children designed to their specifications. The crowd around us had grown. People were recording everything, their faces horrified and fascinated. Airport security was calling for backup. Ma'am, the officer said to Julia, I'm going to need you to come with us. No! Julia broke free and ran toward the gate, but it was too late. The flight had already departed. She stood at the window, watching the plane taxi away, her three latest products gone without her. That's when Dr. Adrian Hale appeared. He was exactly as I remembered him from dinner parties. Tall, distinguished, with silver hair and an expensive suit. But now his face was twisted with rage. You've destroyed everything, he said to me. Years of work, millions of dollars in research, all because you couldn't mind your own business. My business? I laughed bitterly. My wife was selling children created with her genetic material. That seems pretty much like my business. Those children have loving homes now, Hale said. Wealthy families who wanted them, who could provide for them better than any traditional adoption agency. You mean wealthy families who bought them like luxury cars. You're a fool, Carter, a small-minded fool who can't see the bigger picture. That's when I hit him. I'm not a violent man, I fix computers for a living. But something about his smug, superior attitude, the way he talked about those girls like they were merchandise, snapped something inside me. My fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling across the airport floor. Red trickled from his mouth as he looked up at me in shock. The bigger picture, I said, standing over him. The bigger picture is that you and my wife have been playing God with human lives, creating children for the sole purpose of selling them. That's not medicine. That's monstrous. Airport security swarmed us then. Julia was handcuffed and led away, still screaming about her life's work being destroyed. Hale was helped to his feet, holding his jaw and glaring at me with pure hatred. And I stood in the middle of LAX, surrounded by chaos and camera phones, finally understanding what my life had really been for the past 5 years. The story exploded across every news outlet within hours. Clone trafficking ring exposed at LAX. Doctor and nonprofit worker accused of selling designer babies. Husband discovers wife's secret life as human trafficker. I became famous overnight. The man who'd uncovered one of the most bizarre criminal enterprises in recent memory. Reporters camped outside my house. My phone rang constantly with interview requests. But all I cared about was Emily. My 15-year-old daughter sat in our living room watching news coverage of her mother being led away in handcuffs, and I had no idea how to explain any of it. "Dad," she said quietly, "did Mom really create those girls?" I sat down beside her, trying to find the right words. "It looks that way, sweetheart. Are they my sisters? Genetically, yes. But they were created for other purposes." Emily was quiet for a long time, processing information that would have been difficult for an adult to understand. "I always wondered why Mom traveled so much," she finally said, "and why she was always so secretive about her work. Did you ever suspect anything? Not this, but—" She hesitated. "Sometimes I felt like she was keeping secrets. Big ones." The FBI arrived that afternoon. Special Agent Sarah Martinez was professional, thorough, and clearly horrified by what they'd uncovered. "Mr. Carter," she said, "we need you to understand that this investigation is going to be extensive. What your wife and Dr. Hale were doing, we've never seen anything like it. How many children are we talking about? Based on the records we've seized, at least 30 over the past 5 years, all created using genetic material from your wife, all sold to wealthy clients around the world. 30 children, 30 little girls who looked like Julia, scattered across the globe like luxury collectibles. What happens to them now? That's complicated. Many of them are with families who had no idea how they were created. They thought they were adopting through legitimate channels. And Julia?" Agent Martinez's expression was grim. "She's facing federal charges for human trafficking, conspiracy, fraud, and about a dozen other crimes. If convicted, she'll spend the rest of her life in prison." That evening, after the FBI had left and the reporters had finally given up for the day, I sat with Emily in our kitchen, the same kitchen where Julia had made breakfast that morning, humming and planning her day like everything was normal. "What happens to us now?" Emily asked. "I don't know," I admitted, but we'll figure it out. Together." My phone rang. It was Eddie Park. "Rob, you need to see the news. They arrested Hale an hour ago, but there's something else. That friend of Julia's, Lana Cheng, she's missing." I turned on the TV. The local news was showing footage of police searching Lana's apartment in Westwood. According to the reporter, she'd disappeared sometime after Julia's arrest, taking nothing with her except cash and a passport. "They think she's fled the country," Eddie continued. "But here's the interesting part. She left something behind. A storage unit full of documents that show this operation was even bigger than we thought." "How much bigger?" "They weren't just selling to individuals, Rob. They were supplying children to what looks like a network of wealthy clients who were collecting them. Like a subscription service for designer babies." I felt sick. "You mean there are more? Dozens more, maybe hundreds." This wasn't just about money, it was about creating a whole new kind of black market. Perfect children, made to order, delivered anywhere in the world. As Eddie spoke, I watched the news coverage of Julia being transferred to federal custody. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. The confident, radiant woman I'd seen at the airport was gone, replaced by someone who looked lost and broken. But I felt no sympathy for her. Not anymore. She had created children, dozens of them, for the sole purpose of selling them like merchandise. She had lied to me for years, lived a completely fabricated life, and destroyed any chance of trust between us. The woman I'd married no longer existed. Maybe she never had. The investigation expanded rapidly. Within a week, FBI raids were happening simultaneously in 6 countries. The network Julia and Dr. Hale had created was vast, sophisticated, and utterly ruthless. I was called to testify before a federal grand jury. Sitting in that sterile room, facing a panel of jurors who looked as shocked as I felt, I told them everything. The airport sightings, the secret apartment, the documents Eddie had found. "Mr. Carter," the prosecutor asked, "did you have any suspicion that your wife was involved in criminal activity?" "None," I said, "and she seemed like the perfect wife and mother, devoted to our daughter, committed to her work, helping families. I thought I knew her completely." "When did you first begin to suspect that something was wrong?" "When I saw her at LAX with 3 daughters I'd never met. Everything unraveled from there." The grand jury returned indictments against Julia, Dr. Hale, and 17 other people involved in what the media had dubbed the clone network. But Lana Cheng remained at large, presumably somewhere in Southeast Asia, with millions of dollars and a new identity. The psychological evaluation of Julia made for disturbing reading. According to the court-appointed psychiatrist, she showed no remorse for her actions. She genuinely believed she had been providing a valuable service, creating perfect children for families who could afford them. She sees herself as a pioneer, the psychiatrist told me during a consultation, someone who was using advanced technology to give people exactly what they wanted. The fact that she was separating children from their genetic origins doesn't register as problematic for her. What about our daughter? What about Emily? In her mind, Emily is different because Emily was natural. The other children were products, created for a specific purpose. She's compartmentalized them completely. I tried to visit Julia in federal custody once. She was being held in a facility downtown, awaiting trial. She looked terrible, pale, thin, her hair unkempt. But when she saw me, her eyes lit up with something like hope. "Rob," she said through the reinforced glass, "I knew you'd come. I knew you'd want to understand. I want to understand how the woman I married could sell children like they were cars." Her expression hardened. "You always were small-minded, conventional. You could never see the bigger picture." The bigger picture? "Julia, you created dozens of children and sold them to strangers. I gave them life, beautiful, perfect life. And I gave families exactly what they wanted. Children designed up to their specifications, guaranteed to be healthy and intelligent and profitable. Yes, profitable. Do you know what we could have done with that money? The life we could have had?" I stared at her through the glass, trying to find some trace of the woman I'd fallen in love with. But she was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize at all. "What about Emily?" I asked. "What about our actual daughter?" "Emily is fine. She's natural. She's different." "She's devastated, Julia. Her mother is on trial for human trafficking. Her entire world has been destroyed." For the first time, Julia's composure cracked slightly. "She'll understand when she's older. When she sees what I was trying to build, she'll understand that her mother is a monster." Julia's face twisted with rage. "Get out!" she hissed. "Get out and don't come back." I left and never returned. The trial began 6 months later and lasted for 8 weeks. It was a media circus, with reporters from around the world covering what prosecutors called the most sophisticated human trafficking operation in modern history. I testified on the second day. Walking into that courtroom, seeing Julia sitting at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit was surreal. She looked at me with a mixture of hatred and pleading, as if she still hoped I might somehow save her. "Mr. Carter," the prosecutor began, "please tell the jury about the first time you became aware of your wife's criminal activities." I told them about LAX, about seeing Julia with the 3 girls who looked exactly like her. I described the shock, the disbelief, the gradual realization that my entire marriage had been built on lies. "During your 15-year marriage, did the defendant ever mention creating children for sale?" "Never. She told me she worked for a nonprofit that helped families with adoption. She said she was helping people who couldn't have children naturally." "Did she ever mention Dr. Adrian Hale's involvement in creating genetically identical children?" "She said he was a college friend who worked in fertility medicine. He came to our house for dinner parties. He seemed like a normal doctor." Julia's defense attorney tried to paint me as a bitter husband seeking revenge, but the evidence was overwhelming. Financial records showing millions of dollars in payments, medical records detailing the creation of dozens of children, correspondence with clients around the world who had purchased what they thought were legitimately adopted children. The most damaging testimony came from Dr. Hale himself, who had agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. "The defendant approached me in 2019 with a proposal," he testified. "She wanted to use advanced reproductive technology to create children who could be placed with wealthy families willing to pay premium prices." What did she mean by create? "Using her genetic material to produce multiple embryos, which were then brought to term using surrogate mothers. The resulting children were genetically identical to the defendant." How many children were created this way? 47 over 5 years. 47. The number hit me like a physical blow. 47 children who looked like Julia, scattered around the world, most of them unaware of their true origins. Julia took the stand in her own defense, and it was a disaster. She showed no remorse, no understanding of why her actions were wrong. She talked about providing a service and meeting market demand, like she was discussing a legitimate business venture. "These children have loving homes," she says. Science insisted. Families who wanted them, who could provide for them better than any traditional adoption agency. But these families didn't know the children were created specifically for sale, did they? The prosecutor asked. The children were healthy, intelligent, beautiful. What difference does it make how they were created? The difference is that you treated human beings like products to be manufactured and sold. I gave them life. Without me, they wouldn't exist at all. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Julia was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Dr. Hale received 25 years in exchange for his cooperation. 17 other members of the network were sentenced to various prison terms. But Lana Cheng remained at large, and investigators believed she was continuing the operation from somewhere in Asia. The aftermath was complicated. Families around the world discovered that the children they'd adopted had been created and sold through an illegal network. Some wanted to return the children, others fought to keep them. Lawsuits were filed in dozens of countries. Emily and I tried to rebuild our lives. We sold the house, too many memories of Julia, too many reporters camped outside. We moved to a smaller place in Pasadena, where Emily could finish high school without being constantly reminded of her mother's crimes. Do you think about them? She asked me one evening as we were making dinner together. The other girls? The clones? Yes, sometimes. Do you think they're okay? I hope so. Most of them are with families who love them, even if those families didn't know the truth about how they were created. Emily was quiet for a moment. It's weird knowing I have dozens of sisters I'll never meet. They're not really your sisters, Em. They're genetic copies of your mother, but that doesn't make them family. Still, they exist because of her, because of what she did. I didn't know how to respond to that. The psychological implications of Julia's crimes were staggering, not just for the children she'd created, but for everyone who'd been touched by her deception. 6 months after the trial ended, I received an unexpected visitor. Agent Martinez from the FBI knocked on our door on a Saturday morning, looking grim. Mr. Carter, we need to talk. She told me that they'd finally tracked down Lana Cheng to a facility in Thailand. But instead of shutting down the operation, they'd discovered something worse. She's been expanding it, Martinez said. Not just using your wife's genetic material anymore, but creating children from multiple sources. It's like a catalog. Clients can choose the traits they want, and she'll create a child to match. How many? We think at least 100 children have been created and sold in the past year alone. It's become industrialized. The scope of it was overwhelming. What had started as Julia's twisted vision of providing perfect children had evolved into a global network of human trafficking on an unprecedented scale. What can we do? We're working with international law enforcement to shut down the facilities and rescue the children. But it's complicated. Many of these children are with families who don't know the truth about their origins. That night, I lay awake thinking about all those children, dozens, maybe hundreds of them, created in laboratories and sold to the highest bidder. Some of them looked like Julia. Others looked like women I'd never met. Genetic material harvested and used to create custom children for wealthy clients. And somewhere in Thailand, Lana Cheng was continuing Julia's work, expanding it, turning the creation of human life into an assembly line operation. The woman I'd married had started something monstrous, and even from her prison cell, it was still growing. 2 years after Julia's conviction, I received a call that changed everything. Agent Martinez's voice was tense with excitement. We found her, Rob. Lana Cheng, she's back in the United States. What? Why would she come back? We think she's trying to restart the operation here. She's been recruiting new doctors, setting up new facilities. And there's something else. She's been asking about you. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? Our informant says she blames you for destroying everything. She's obsessed with the idea that you ruined her life, cost her millions of dollars. We think she might try to contact you. I was right to be worried. 3 days later, my phone rang at 2 a.m. The caller ID showed a blocked number. Hello, Rob. The voice was cold, familiar. Lana Cheng. How did you get this number? I've been watching you and Emily. Nice little house in Pasadena. She's grown up a lot since I last saw her. My stomach turned to ice. If you go anywhere near my daughter, relax. I'm not interested in Emily. I'm interested in you. What do you want? I want you to understand what you destroyed. Do you know how many families you hurt when you exposed Julia's work? How many children were torn away from loving homes because of your self-righteous crusade? Those children were sold like merchandise. Those children had families who wanted them, who loved them, who could provide for them better than any biological parent. Her voice was rising, becoming shrill. I could hear the madness in it, the complete disconnect from reality. Where are you, Lana? Close, very close. In fact, I'm in your driveway right now. I looked out the window and I saw a black sedan parked across the street. My heart started pounding. What do you want? I want you to see what you've done. I want you to meet some of the families you destroyed. The line went dead. I immediately called emergency, then Agent Martinez. But by the time the police arrived, the sedan was gone. The next morning, I found an envelope slipped under my front door. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Pictures of children who looked like Julia, living with families around the world. Happy children, playing in gardens, celebrating birthdays, graduating from school. On the back of each photo was a note in Lana's handwriting, destroyed by Rob Carter's selfishness. But there was something else in the envelope. An address in downtown LA, and a tea, 8 p.m. tonight. Come alone, the note read. Time to finish this. I should have called the FBI. Should have let Agent Martinez handle it. But something about those photographs, about seeing all those children living normal lives with families who loved them, made me want to face Lana myself. The address was a warehouse in an industrial part of downtown LA. I arrived at exactly 8 p.m., my heart pounding with adrenaline and fear. The building looked abandoned, but the door was unlocked. Inside, I found a space that had been converted into something like a medical facility. Clean white walls, examination tables, equipment I didn't recognize. Welcome to the future, Rob. I turned to find Lana standing behind me. She looked different, older, harder, with the kind of cold intensity I'd seen in Julia's eyes during the trial. This is where it all begins again, she said. Better than before, more efficient, more profitable. It's over, Lana. The FBI knows you're here. They're probably surrounding this place right now, she laughed. The FBI? They're busy chasing ghosts in Thailand while I rebuild everything here. By the time they figure out what's happening, I'll have a dozen new facilities running. Creating more children to sell, creating perfect children for families who want them. You destroyed Julia's vision, but you can't destroy the demand. There are hundreds of wealthy couples around the world who want designer babies, and I'm going to give them exactly what they want. She led me deeper into the facility, showing me rooms full of equipment, laboratories, incubators. This time, it's not just about genetic copying, she said. We can customize everything: intelligence, appearance, athletic ability, even personality traits. It's like building a car, except the product is a human being. You're talking about creating people like they're objects. They are objects, beautiful, perfect objects that bring joy to the families who buy them. What's wrong with that? I stared at her, trying to understand how someone could be so completely disconnected from basic human morality. What do you want from me, Lana? I want you to see what you destroyed, and I want you to help me rebuild it. Help you? Are you insane? You're going to invest in this operation, Rob. You're going to use the money from your divorce settlement, your house sale, everything you have. You're going to help me create the most advanced human manufacturing facility in the world. And if I refuse? Her smile was cold as winter. Then Emily's going to have some new sisters, very young sisters, created from genetic material I've been saving for a special occasion. The threat hit me like a physical blow. You have Julia's. I have everything, Rob. Genetic material, medical records, the complete process for creating perfect copies. If you don't cooperate, I'll make a dozen new Julias and sell them to the highest bidders. Your wife's legacy will live on forever. That's when I heard the sirens. Lana's face went white. You called them. I didn't have to. They've been tracking you since you entered the country. FBI agents swarmed the building, led by Agent Martinez. Lana tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. She was surrounded, trapped in the facility she'd built to restart her monstrous operation. As they handcuffed her, she looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, she hissed. The demand is still there. The technology exists. Someone else will continue the work. Maybe, I said. But it won't be you, and it won't be Julia. She was led away, screaming about destroyed dreams and lost profits, completely unable to understand that what she called work was actually the systematic creation and sale of human beings. Agent Martinez walked over to me as the facility was secured. We found evidence of at least 50 more children, she said, created and sold over the past 2 years. This operation was even bigger than we thought. What happens now? Now we shut it down permanently, and we try to help all those children find their way back to legitimate families. As I left the warehouse, I thought about Julia, sitting in her prison cell, probably still convinced that she'd been providing a valuable service. I thought about Lana, who'd just been arrested for continuing that work. And I thought about all the children, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, who existed because of their twisted vision of human perfection. The nightmare was finally over, but the consequences would last for generations. Epilogue. Justice served. 6 months later, Lana Cheng was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The international network was completely dismantled, with facilities shut down in 12 countries. Over 200 children were identified as products of the operation, and a massive effort was undertaken to ensure they were placed with legitimate, loving families. Emily graduated from high school and was accepted to UCLA, where she planned to study social work. I want to help children who've been hurt by the system, she told me. I want to make sure what happened to those kids never happens again. I was proud of her. Despite everything she'd been through, despite learning that her mother was a monster who'd created and sold dozens of children, Emily had emerged as a strong, compassionate young woman. As for me, I went back to my quiet life as an IT security engineer. I fixed firewalls and caught hackers, and tried not to think about the fact that somewhere in the world, there were dozens of children who looked like my ex-wife, living with families who might never know the truth about their origins. The story made headlines around the world. Clone trafficking network dismantled. Life sentences for human traffickers. Designer baby scandal ends with arrests. But for me, it wasn't about headlines or justice or closure. It was about the simple fact that no more children would be created in laboratories and sold to the highest bidder. The assembly line of human misery had finally been shut down. Julia died in prison 3 years later. A heart attack, according to the official report. I didn't attend the funeral. Neither did Emily. The woman who'd given birth to my daughter had ceased to exist long before her body finally gave out. On the anniversary of that first day at LAX, when I'd seen Julia with those 3 girls who looked exactly like her, I sometimes wondered what would have happened if I'd just looked the other way. If I'd pretended not to see, not to know, not to care, but I knew the answer. More children would have been created. More families would have been deceived. More lives would have been destroyed by Julia's twisted vision of human perfection. I'd done the right thing, even though it had cost me everything I thought I knew about my life. And that was enough.